Hello guys and welcome back. In this video we are going to cover the markup sections in HTML. In the last section we have covered the forms part in HTML. So if you have not watched that video, then I will provide a link down in the description. You can go and check out from there. So what actually markups are? So markups are generally used as it facilitates the browser to render our web page easily. They contain the information about the web page, such as the description of web page, which we often see in our search engine results. Also they contains the keyword which were used for search engine optimization. In nowadays that technology, or you can say that concept, is of no longer importance. So also we are going to cover here the iframes section. You can see this iframes. So let us just start with a basic markup. So what actually a markup is? So as we just discussed, that it facilitates the browser to render our web page. So as we start our HTML code, the first line or the first statement we see here is a markup which tells the browser that which version of HTML are we using. So this statement specifies that we are using the HTML5 version. The earlier versions of HTML, say HTML4 or XHTML, has different specifications. So uh, let us now discuss the next type of markup, or not a markup, but let us just first understand the difference between the id attribute and class attribute. We are going to cover that in a lot more detail when we talk about the styling in CSS, but let us have a brief introduction to it. So whenever we want a particular section of our web page to have some unique properties which differs from the rest of the elements or say sections, then we can use a id attribute. And when we want to have different sections of our web page to have same property, or you can say a group of elements to have same property or same set of rules, then we can use a class attribute. Here for a better understanding, I have just specified some properties or say rules for the dummy class and dummy2 class, and also for the para id. So this set of rule is defined for this paragraph, which says this is a paragraph and has id equals to para, and the rest 2 refers to, or we have used that classes in these two paragraphs. So let us see in the browser what it actually does. So let me just refresh it. Okay, so you can see that let me just remove this portion. Okay, so this is a paragraph which has the id equals to para, and these two paragraphs refers to the dummy and dummy2 class. Let me just first remove the dummy2 class and only have same class for both the paragraphs. So you can see the properties which they both share is the font size, as we have mentioned here. This is font size of 50 pixel, and here the paragraph having the id para has the font size of 25 pixels. So you can see a clear difference between both of them. Also we can have more than one classes, so we can just write or define more classes by giving a space, and we can say here dummy2 and just save it. So what is going to happen is that the section is going to incorporate the properties which are defined in both the classes. So before we move on, let us understand the two basic type of elements, though they are not of any practical importance, but let us understand it. So they are the block level elements or block elements, and the second one are the inline elements. So what is the difference between a block level and an inline element? So block level elements usually begins from a new line, as you can see that this h1 tag is a block level element. So it begins from a new line, as you can see here. If suppose we write something uh, let us say in this paragraph we want to write something in bold, so we can use a B tag or say B element. So bold, italic, all these are inline elements. You can check out on internet the different types of inline and block elements. So let us write something that this is an inline element. Let us just save and reload it. So you can see that this begins its you can say begins from the same line, not on a new line as this h1 text appears to be. So now that we have discussed the basics, let us now move forward to the iframes section. So what actually an iframe is? So iframe is nothing but a web page inside of a web page. So iframe is basically a small window, and in that window you can have any web page. So though this function is not used nowadays by most of the developers, the only use of iframes is in embedding the Google Maps. So let us have a brief example. So here, whenever we want to define an iframe or use an iframe, we just simply have to write iframe and give a tab. So it takes a default attribute of source. So this source attribute takes in the value of the web page. It can be any web page on your local server or anywhere on the, you can say, distant server. So the second attribute which it takes is the width, and the third one is the height attribute. So you can see here, as we have defined in the about to section. Okay, so the third attribute which we can have here, which was in the earlier version, is the frame border. So in most of the browsers and HTML5 it is not supported. So just we are going to discuss a brief. So you can have any value of frame border in pixels. Okay, so in the earlier versions of HTML, another attribute was being used inside of the iframes, which is the scrolling attribute. So if the scrolling value is set to no, then it doesn't allows that particular window, the web page inside of that particular window, to be scrolled. So let us understand all this by an example. So here I have used an iframe which corresponds to the Google map of the Ahmedabad city, and in the next iframe I have used the Wikipedia to have a look in that window of our web page. So here we have that file, and let me just refresh it. So you can see this refers to a different web page, and this also refers to a different web page. So you can see that scrolling is enabled here, but if we set that to no, then scrolling equals to say no, and just okay, you can see that now we cannot scroll this particular web page inside of this window. So that were the basics. Okay, there is another attribute which is seamless, which is very basic. You can search for it on Google. So the next markup of our importance is the meta tag. So what meta tag does is, okay, first of all, it is the character set which defines the type of encoding, which is in our case is UTF-18. It can be any. So this can have a attribute of description, and I can say name, and along with the name the other attributes used are the keywords. Okay, so that were used in the earlier versions of HTML, so we cannot see that in this HTML5 version. And the other is I think robot. So this description is used to describe what the actual web page is about. This name is also similar to the name tag which we use along with the other element. Okay, so this keyword section, we can define certain keywords, say game, and we can separate that keywords using the commas. So what it actually does is whenever a user search for any of the given keyword, then it increases the chances of this particular web page to be indexed first in the search results. So I think that's all for the markup section. So in the next section we are going to cover the audio, video and image file formats and their advanced versions. So till then, thank you.